Taurus, the second sign of the Zodiac, represented by the bull, an animal famous for being strong, dependable, and going absolutely nowhere unless it feels like it. It's the sign that runs from April 21st to May 20th, that pleasant stretch of the year when the sun starts making an effort, and everyone remembers that outside exists. But Taurus is more than the sudden reappearance of annoying insects that no one invited. It's the sign of patience, persistence, and doing things properly, even if that means taking 3 times as long as everyone else. It's the sign of enjoying the finer things and seeing absolutely no reason to rush them. So grab your wine glass, your cheese board, and your favorite armchair, because the cosmos is about to get comfortable. Taurus is one of those signs that doesn't see the need to rush anything. It's steady, grounded, and perfectly happy taking its time. It's fixed Earth ruled by Venus, so we're talking about stability, comfort, and a strong appreciation for anything that makes life feel just a little bit nicer. Good food, comfortable surroundings, and the general belief that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Taurus has a reputation for being reliable, patient, and very difficult to shift once it's settled into something. In this episode, we're going to unpack Taurus from the inside out. We'll dig into its history, mythology, and psychology. We'll look at the tarot correspondences, a constellation you can actually see for once, and a collection of herbs that have somehow turned into the most suggestive gardening segment on YouTube. But first, our fool is about to encounter a sign that's calm, composed, and not remotely interested in hurrying up for anyone. The Fool's Odyssey. The Fool is continuing his journey through the zodiac signs on his physically impossible locomotive.
Now approaching Taurus. Please don't rush when exiting the train.
As the Fool steps onto the platform, he finds himself on a farm.
Oh wow, get a load of this. I've never seen so many vegetables.
Careful now, don't get too excited. You'll frighten the carrots.
Sorry, I just love root vegetables.
Well, I can see that.
Look at them. Turnips, parsnips, radishes. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good crop this year.
Did you grow all these yourself?
Of course I did. Good soil, a bit of patience, and not rushing about like a lunatic. Would you like to try a carrot?
Don't mind if I do.
Fresh out the ground, nothing better.
Oh, you can really taste the earth.
That'll be the earth.
Oh wow, are those beetroots?
Only the best in the zodiac. You can beat an egg, but you can't beat a root.
Soon the Fool is getting comfortable in the field, surrounded by vegetables and completely at ease.
You know, I could get used to this.
Most people could. Anyway, I suppose you want me to stamp your ticket?
What? Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot all about that. I got a bit carried away.
Easily done when you're surrounded by top quality farm produce. Well, if you want it stamped, you're gonna need to help me pull up that giant Swede.
Wow, that's a big one.
Go on then, give it a pull.
It's stuck.
It isn't stuck, it's rooted.
It won't budge.
That's 'cause you're rushing it. These things take time.
At last, the Fool manages to tease the giant vegetable out of the ground.
Finally. My word, it really is a beauty.
That's what happens when you give something time. Nothing worth having ever comes up easily. You've got to put the work in, be patient, let things grow properly.
Well, it was definitely worth it.
Of course it was. Come on then, let's stamp that ticket.
Oh, okay. I suppose it's time to move on.
You should probably get back to the train now, but don't forget to take your time out there, fool. There's no need to rush. The best things in life are always worth waiting for.
And so, with a full belly and muddy hands, the Fool makes his way back to the Cosmic Constellation Express to continue his journey through the stars. To be continued. Once again, we return to the buttocks of destiny, where the rich soil, slow pace, and wide variety of bulbs, rhizomes, and tubers have had a deeply satisfying effect on our Taurus Fool. So for today, we drift gently over to the happy cheek, where the grass is soft, the harvest is plentiful, and the arrow rests comfortably to the right of destiny's dark divide. Will the Fool stay chipper or get stuck in the compost heap? Find out next time on The Fool's Odyssey. The history of Taurus. Once again, we're kicking off with our favourite 1st century poet Marcus Manilius and his slightly overdramatic approach to farming. In his epic poem Astronomica, he writes, "Strong Taurus bears, by him the grounds are tilled. He takes the yoke, nor doth the plough disdain. The useful ploughshare he retrieves from rust, nor lies at ease, and wants his strength in dust." So what he's basically saying here is that Taurus does all the work. This is the sign that rolls up its sleeves, gets stuck into the soil and actually builds something. No dramatic entrances, no grand speeches, just steady, consistent effort that turns potential into something real. Jumping forward a century, we find Claudius Ptolemy, who takes a slightly different approach to Taurus. Writing in Tetrabiblos, he links the sign not just to the land but to its ruling planet, Venus, the planet of pleasure and beauty. He says the shores of Asia Minor and of Cyprus are more particularly under the influence of Taurus and Venus, and are therefore voluptuous, fond of elegance, and over-studious in their attention to the body. Which is a very polite ancient way of saying that after all that hard physical work, Taurus fully intends to enjoy the physical rewards. I'm just going to leave it at that. Moving swiftly on to the angel and demon double act for Taurus, according to Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, we've got Asmodel in the holy corner, whose name means destruction of enemies, so quite a reassuring presence if you happen to have any adversaries plotting against you. Asmodel represents the protective and stabilising side of Taurus. Moving on to the naughty corner, we find Araziel. Interestingly, this particular demon king is associated with geomancy, which is a form of divination using the earth itself. Traditionally, this involved looking for marks in the soil or sand and then interpreting the patterns. In any case, Araziel is often translated as firmness of God. Now that might sound quite reassuring at first, but this is where Taurus energy can start to dig its heels in, and stability turns into stubbornness. But symbolically, this represents a deeper connection to the material world. Whereas Asmodel protects what's being built, Araziel reflects on what happens when that attachment becomes too rigid, when holding your ground becomes refusing to move at all.
The mythology of Taurus.
Stampeding all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia, the Babylonians knew this region of the sky as Gu-An-Na, which translates to the Bull of Heaven. Now we're not talking about a nice peaceful farm animal grazing under the stars. The Bull of Heaven was a full-blown mythological menace, sent by the goddess Ishtar to punish the hero Gilgamesh after he rejected her. Hell knows no fury like a woman scorned, especially when that woman turns out to be the goddess of war. It's probably a bad idea to ghost her. The bull rampaged across the land, tearing up the earth, opening massive chasms, and generally causing chaos wherever it went. Eventually Gilgamesh managed to take it down, which only made things worse, because killing a divine bull is apparently frowned upon. It's political correctness gone mad. In ancient Egypt, the bull symbolism carried on, but with a much more sacred and stable quality. Taurus was associated with the Apis bull, a living manifestation of divine power, later linked to the god Osiris. Unlike the Babylonian bull of heaven rampaging across the landscape, the Apis bull was worshipped as a symbol of strength, fertility, and earthly abundance. We can see him on the Dendera zodiac, where Taurus appears clearly as a bull moving through the sky. By this point, the image had settled down a bit. Less divine rampage, more slow steady presence. Moving into Greek mythology, Taurus is most commonly linked to Zeus, who in a rare moment of subtlety decided to turn into a bull. I'm sure it made a nice change from chucking thunderbolts around. In any case, the story goes that Zeus took a fancy to Europa, a Phoenician princess, and immediately decided that what this situation needed was a full livestock transformation. So he turned himself into a magnificent white bull and wandered over to her. Now, rather than causing chaos like the Babylonian bull of heaven, this one was calm, gentle, and apparently very approachable. As such, Europa was quite taken with him, so she climbed onto his back, as you do. At this point, Zeus promptly ran into the sea and swam all the way to Crete, revealing his true identity once they arrived. Which, if nothing else, is one way to get yourself an all-inclusive holiday in the Greek islands, without having to fly with Ryanair.
The psychology of Taurus.
When Carl Jung turns his attention to Taurus, he sums it up rather neatly as the bull, the great push of nature. And that's exactly what he's getting at here. Taurus represents the raw generative force of life itself. Not abstract ideas, but the underlying drive that makes things grow and take shape in the physical world. He goes on to say this seems to suggest that the bull has a hidden feminine significance. The bull anima appears to be decidedly feminine and is connected with fertility and the sustaining power of life. So that might sound a bit odd at first. When most of us think of a bull, we're not immediately thinking feminine, but we have to bear in mind that Taurus has a yin or feminine polarity. What Jung is pointing to here is that the bull isn't just about brute strength. He notes that in astrology, Taurus is a house of Venus, and the bull is therefore not only a symbol of strength, but also the generative and creative power of nature. So this instinctive, grounded energy we've been talking about is shaped by Venus. It creates, but it also enjoys what it creates. This shows up as a drive to manifest things, to take something abstract and turn it into something real. Whether that's a home, a routine, a relationship, or a body of work, Taurus energy wants to create something that lasts. In Jungian terms, Taurus reflects a psyche that is deeply connected to the material world. It takes what is potential and gives it form, turning ideas into something tangible, something that can be experienced, enjoyed, and sustained over time.
The personality of Taurus.
As always, before we get into the personality traits, let's take a look at the basic astrological architecture that underpins the sign. First of all, Taurus has a negative polarity, also known as yin or feminine. As we've said before, this doesn't mean good or bad, it simply means the energy is more inward and receptive rather than outward and expressive. Yin signs tend to absorb, stabilize and respond rather than initiate. Taurus is also a fixed sign, which means its energy is steady, consistent, and not particularly fond of change. Fixed signs are all about maintaining and developing what already exists, so once Taurus has settled into something, it tends to stay there, quite happily. Elementally, Taurus belongs to Earth, so we're firmly in the realm of practicality, material reality, and things you can actually touch. Capricorn is cardinal Earth, so that's about building and planning for the long term. Virgo is mutable Earth, which refines and adjusts what's already there. Taurus, as fixed Earth, is about holding things steady, maintaining, preserving, and making sure it all keeps working. And finally, Taurus is ruled by Venus, the planet of beauty, pleasure, and attraction. So unlike Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn and tends to focus on discipline and structure, Taurus is more interested in comfort, enjoyment, and making life feel good. So the good news is that Taurus is one of the most reliable signs in the zodiac. When you commit to something, you don't just start it, you stick with it. While other signs are busy chasing the next idea, Taurus is the one quietly getting things done. There's a natural patience here, you're not in a rush, and you understand that anything worth having takes time. That steady approach makes you someone people can rely on, especially when things get chaotic. You're the calm presence in the room, keeping things grounded while everyone else is flapping about. Being ruled by Venus also gives Taurus a strong appreciation for comfort, beauty, and the finer things in life. And perhaps most importantly, Taurus builds things that last. Whether that's relationships, careers, or projects, there's a sense of durability here. You're not just in it for a quick win, you're in for something solid and something that actually holds together over time. So the bad news is that all of that stability can occasionally turn into not moving at all. Once Taurus has decided on something, it can be extremely difficult to shift. Not because you've carefully considered every possible outcome, but because you've decided, and that's that. Change is not your favourite thing. In fact, if something is working reasonably well, Taurus will stick with it long past the point where everyone else has quietly moved on. But when it's channeled properly, that same instinct creates something incredibly steady. Taurus doesn't chase every new direction, it chooses carefully, settles in and makes things work. And in a world that's constantly changing its mind, there's something very powerful about that. Moving on to health and the ever-reliable Zodiac Man, which is less of a medical chart and more of a medieval guessing game. Once again, we refer to Manilius and his famously detailed anatomical insights. He said, "The neck, the bull." Cheers, really painting us a picture there. However, one piece of medical advice I can confidently offer here is to learn the lesson of the neck and always try and keep your head attached to your body.
Take that, modern medicine.
Now when it comes to wealth, Taurus is said to take a very sensible approach. Unlikely to chase get-rich-quick schemes, you're probably the last person to invest in turd coin. Being earth element points towards fields, combine harvesters, wellies and shouting, "Get off my land!" But if farming isn't your thing, then making stuff can be right up your alley. Of course, with Venus as your ruling planet, that stuff can easily be songs, paintings, or sculptures of naughty bits. Speaking of which, when it comes to love, Taurus is in no rush whatsoever. They take their time, if you know what I mean. No two-push Pedros here. Taurus is also considered to be deeply loyal. Once you've chosen someone, you're all in. You're the sign least likely to be playing games or keeping your options open. Having Venus in the background means you appreciate the physical side of things. Good food, a comfortable atmosphere, popping on a bit of Brandon Williams at the end of the night to grease the wheels. The downside can be getting a little too comfortable and sliding into routines. Once the bull settles in, it can be quite difficult to shift. Even when something isn't quite working, the instinct isn't to leave, it's to adjust the cushions and see if that helps. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can mean that Taurus sometimes hangs on for a bit longer than it should. However, at its best, that same instinct can build something solid, lasting, and something worth staying around for. So with that in mind, let's see how all of that plays out when Taurus enters the dating arena. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Star-Crossed. This week's earthly bachelorette is Taurus, lover of comfort and defender of personal space. Will she find a partner worth sharing the sofa with, or will she decide it's not worth the effort? Let's meet our three hopefuls. First up, we've got Pisces, sensitive, imaginative, and already invested in a relationship that hasn't technically started yet. Next there's Sagittarius, energetic, unpredictable, and visibly struggling to sit still. And finally we've got Libra, charming, refined, and quietly adjusting the lighting to something more flattering. Taurus, it's time to ask your big question.
My question is this. If we spent an all day together, what would that actually look like?
We'd stay in, curtains half drawn, soft music playing, enjoying the moment. Maybe we talk, maybe we don't. Either way, it feels like we're exactly where we're meant to be.
We'd start with a sunrise run, then a road trip to somewhere random. Bit of cliff jumping, maybe end the day in a different country. You'd love it.
Well, I'd plan something beautiful. A gallery, a walk somewhere picturesque, maybe a drink somewhere elegant. Nothing too intense, just a perfectly balanced day.
Ooh. Well, Taurus, it's make your mind up time.
I'm going with Pisces. He understands that a good day doesn't need improving.
And there we have it, Taurus and Pisces, a match built on peace, quiet, and not being disturbed. Will this be lasting love, or will they simply forget to leave the house? Either way, it sounds quite pleasant. And now let's see what happens when comfort meets chaos in Star-Crossed Tinder Edition.
Let's go hiking, now. I'm already outside.
I'm already horizontal.
I need attention, a lot of it.
I need sleep. A lot of it.
Fast talker, quick thinker, always on the move.
He'd change his mind halfway through dessert.
Blankets, home-cooked food, and someone to come back to.
Wrap me up and don't let me leave.
Organised, practical, and very particular.
He'd alphabetise my spice rack, and I'd let him.
Intense, private, and emotionally all or nothing.
That's a lot of feeling for someone who just wants a nap.
Ambitious, disciplined, and not here to waste time.
Good. Neither am I.
Let's change the world together.
Can we sit down first?
Good food, good wine, and absolutely no rushing.
Finally, a man who understands foreplay is a 3-course meal.
The constellation of Taurus. Now it's time to gaze upward to the heavens and the stars of Taurus, which are pretty visible for a change. Loads going on here, so let's dig in. Taurus is a large and relatively bright constellation, so you're not going to need to spend hours trying to hunt it down. The outline forms a kind of V shape that represents the bull's face and horns. The brightest star is Aldebaran, a red giant about 65 light years away, which marks the eye of the bull. The name comes from the Arabic word for the follower, as it appears to follow the Pleiades across the sky. Speaking of which, one of the standout features of Taurus is that it contains not one, but two of the nearest open clusters to Earth, the Hyades and the Pleiades. An open cluster is basically a group of stars that form together and are loosely bound by gravity. The Hyades form that V shape we just mentioned, making up the face of the bull, while the Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters, sit just above it as a tight little cluster of bright blue stars. We've got some pretty spectacular deep sky objects in there too. In the northeastern part of the constellation we find NG1514, also known as the Crystal Ball Nebula. Also, if we zip over to the northwest we find M1, or the Crab Nebula. This was caused by a Type II supernova explosion that was seen from Earth in 1054. Apparently it was so powerful that it could be seen in daylight, so I imagine the people back then must have been freaking out when they saw that in the sky. For those of us following the sidereal zodiac, if your birthday falls between May 15th and May 20th, you're a Taurus in both systems. If you were born between April 21st and May 14th, then you'd be considered an Aries in the sidereal system.
Correspondence Corner!
We're going to start by plodding steadily into the tarot cards, and in the case of Taurus, that gives us the 5, 6 and 7 of Pentacles, the Knight of Pentacles and the King of Swords, the Page and the Ace of Pentacles, and the Hierophant is Taurus Major Arcana card. First up, the 5 of Pentacles runs from April 21st to April 30th and is Mercury in Taurus. This is where thought meets material reality. Mercury wants movement and ideas. Taurus wants stability. So the result is a focus on practical concerns, money, security, and what's actually in front of you. At its best, it's realism. At its worst, it's feeling like you're stuck outside in the cold. Next, the 6 of Pentacles runs from May 1st to May the 10th, and this is the Moon in Taurus. This is where emotion meets stability. The Moon wants comfort and safety. Taurus wants consistency. So the result is generosity, support, and the sharing of resources, giving and receiving in a way that feels balanced and secure. The 7 of Pentacles runs from May the 11th to May the 20th and is Saturn in Taurus. This is where limitation meets patience. Saturn slows things down. Taurus is already in no rush, so the result is long-term effort, waiting, assessing, and trusting that what you've planted will eventually grow, even if it's taking its sweet time. The Knight of Pentacles runs from April the 11th to May the 10th, carrying Aries into Taurus. This is slow, steady progress. No drama, no shortcuts, just consistent effort. The Knight will absolutely get there, eventually. From May the 11th to June the 10th, we move into the King of Swords, as Taurus gives way to Gemini. This brings clarity, logic and decision making, but grounded in Taurus's practicality. Thinking things through before making a move rather than charging in. Just like Aries and Gemini, Taurus also carries the Ace and the Page of Pentacles. The Ace brings opportunity, growth and the potential for something real to take shape. The Page adds curiosity and learning. Together they underline Taurus's connection to building something tangible from the ground up. Finally, we come to Taurus's Major Arcana card, the Hierophant. This is the card of tradition, structure and established patterns. The Hierophant represents teaching, guidance and the passing down of knowledge through tried and tested methods. At its best, this is wisdom, stability and a strong foundation. At its worst, it's doing something the same way forever, simply because that's how it's always been done. Moving on to the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, Taurus corresponds to the 16th path. This connects Chokmah, the sphere of wisdom, with Hesed, the sphere of mercy and expansion. This is also the path of the Hebrew letter Vav, which means nail or hook. So what we're looking at here is a kind of linking principle. Vav is something that joins two things together. It connects and secures and holds structures in place, which feels very Taurus. Once that nail's been hammered in, it's not going anywhere. In the Chicken Kabbalah, Lomala Deket says nails and pins are sharp, pointy things that join two objects together by means of penetration. By its very shape, it represents the phallus. This implies union, yoga, and union with God is the goal of all mystics, especially Chicken Kabbalists. The process is theoretically simple. Find the proper Vav and you can nail yourself to God. What a mental image that is! Moving on to the gemstones, and in true Taurus fashion, Otter Spirit have put together a collection that's as solid as it is stylish. It's getting to the point where I'm starting to feel underdressed if I haven't got one of these on. Here's a few highlights, and don't forget you can use the code KIPPY20 for 20% off or KIPPY30 for 30% off orders over $100. First up, we've got Kunzite for love. This is all about emotional openness and connection. It softens that steady exterior, just enough to let a little bit of vulnerability in, without losing that sense of stability Taurus is well known for. Next is Zebra Jasper for balance. This one's all about harmony between effort and rest. Taurus is very good at both. Sometimes it just needs a gentle reminder to keep them in balance. Then we've got Unikite for healing. This supports gradual emotional growth and recovery. It's not about dramatic change, it's about steady progress, the kind that actually sticks. And there's Red Tiger Eye for confidence. This brings grounded courage and motivation. It helps Taurus take action when needed, without rushing or forcing things before the time is right. Now for the herbal correspondences, and for this sign we're bringing back our resident gardener Jethro. Let's see what he's planting for us in his cosmic garden.
Taurus, welcome back to Stillness and Soil. Today we're planting a garden of comfort, pleasure and things that grow strong and upright. First up, mugwort. Plant it near where you sit and rest. It encourages vivid imagination, so it gives you the kind of dreams where you have to wash your pyjamas in the morning.
Right.
Next we've got hops, lovely plant that makes a fine beer. Go easy though, or you might end up with brewer's droop, and we certainly don't want that. Next up we've got sage, clears the space, keeps things balanced, and stops everything getting out of hand.
Which in a garden like this is probably for the best.
But the real star of the show is rhubarb. Just look at it, nice proud shafts, almost throbbing with vitality in the fresh air, firm to the touch with a bit of weight to it. You know you've got something substantial when you get hold of a good one.
Yeah, I think I might go somewhere a bit less fertile.
Suit yourself, more for me.
Now, before we head off into the sunset, I just wanted to say that the channel now has memberships available. So if you'd like to join Kippy's Questers, we've got a few different tiers depending on how deep down the rabbit hole you'd like to go. Supporters get badges and members posts. Companions get early videos, your name in the credits, and a monthly tarot reading. And the inner circle is where we start exploring ritual magic together. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, or chalice of mysterious glowing liquid, have a look at the join button down below.
Kippy's Quest. Kippy's Quest. Yay!
So that's Taurus, the sign that doesn't rush, doesn't panic, and doesn't see the point in fixing something that's working perfectly well already. It's steady, reliable, and far more interested in building something solid than chasing the next big thing. Taurus doesn't need constant excitement, it just needs something real, something that lasts, something that feels good, and something worth holding on to. And yes, that can sometimes look like stubbornness, but more often than not, it's what allows Taurus to create stability in a world that's constantly trying to move the goalposts. Strip away the stereotypes, and what you're left with is a sign that understands value. Not just money or possessions, but the value of time, effort, and the simple pleasure of a life that's well made. As Michelle Pfeiffer once said, I'm a Taurus, to the bone.
Thank you for joining us on this gentle wander through Taurus. May your cushions be firm, your foundations be stable, and your turnips be bulbous. Until next time.